Good morning, and again, everyone, for the fifth Home Gemmology webinar. These sessions that don't intend much to teach or to educate, but more to entertain you and to keep you motivated, keep you in good spirits during this isolation time. Some of you are with your family, some of you are all alone, and it's really tough to be locked down and not to be able to do nothing during a long period of time. So thank you very much for being there. I hope you will find this 1 hour enjoyable. So just today, my talk will be on Lalique, but not with an artistic perspective, because I'm a gemologist, as most of you know. I'm not a jewelry historian. I'm not an expert in Lalique, let alone in jewelry design. So what I can share with you is the perspective of a gemologist over the gem materials that Lalique used in the period when he manufactured artistic jewelry that everybody loves. So that's the perspective today. And as we go along, I will elaborate on 1 or 2 or 3 gem materials that will pop up on your screen. And that's it. It's a gemologist perspective. It's not an artistic perspective. I'm not qualified to give you that one. So let me press the button, not this one, the other one. Yeah. So today we will address, I will introduce you a little bit to Lalique, not much, but just to give you a context, and also the context of his period, because when he was manufacturing jewelry, other artists and brands were also doing jewelry, and he stood out for some reason, but his ecosystem was different than the other manufacturers. And also we will discuss the gem materials that he used and maybe speculate on why. He used diamonds, and we will see how he used diamonds. A lot of colored gemstones, because he was a colored man, particularly on 2 colors, green and blue, or greenish blue, bluish green. Around green and blue was actually his favorite color, if we look closely. And also he used a lot of biogenic gem materials, and here we include pearls, horn, and ivory, and also some other imitations. But I'm not going into imitations today. I'm focusing only on gem materials. So, and phenomenal stones also, not phenomenal in the poetic sense of the term, but phenomenal in the sense that they have optical phenomena. It's a gemological term, but I will explain you later on. So who was Lalique? He was a genius, okay? He was an absolute genius. When his father passed away around 1875, 76, he became a jewelry apprentice, and all his career went from there. He was skilled. In a lifetime, we find skilled people in many areas. Like in football, we have Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo. In music, we had Mozart, Paganini, what have you. In jewelry arts, Lalique is definitely one of those geniuses. So that's the caliber of this gentleman. He was out of the box. He was a master in everything. He was good with his brains and excellent with his hands. So he was actually unique. And he was inspired, like most artists on his period, by nature, by Japanese art, and also by the feminine figure. So basically it's the same kind of motifs, the same kind of art and aesthetical narrative that we see in Art Nouveau. We relate Lalique with Art Nouveau, absolutely. So after he made a very short period of jewelry, he produced jewelry for a little over 2 decades. He dedicated himself to glass, because by 1910, 1911, he was seeing a lot of his works being copied. And so maybe he was not happy, and then he began being very successful producing glass, particularly for perfume bottles. And then all of a sudden, he became mostly a glassmaker till the end of his days in 1945. So this is a very basic overview on Lalique. If you look in libraries, you will find better books than this 2 minutes I spent talking about him. But the part that interests us today is his career as a jeweler. And as I said, when his father passed away, he went to as an apprentice, and he worked with Louise Alcock, and he learned how to handle the hands. Then he went studying to London. He learned how to sketch, how to model, and he was completely gifted. And all the artists from that, jewelry artists from the period, they did like his drawings and his creations. And he worked, before he was working for himself, he was working for names that you probably recognize. You see there Cartier, Boucheron, Weber. Those are really major names in the jewelry scene of the late 19th century. And he was working, ghost writing, ghost working for those chaps on those days. So he was really gifted. But then he decided to make his own things and to adventure himself into jewelry. And he was already known and he was already respected when in 1900 in a universal exhibition in Paris. And you can then see here, look at his pavilion. His pavilion is a work of art, and it was only a pavilion. Then he became world recognized. It's in this period that he actually, his name goes boom everywhere. Also in Paris, because he lived in Paris, he was really well connected, and he was really well connected with the ladies, the famous celebrities of the time. And Sarah Bernard, she was a star on those days, very influential, and knew a lot of millionaires. And she introduced him to many collectors, including the one that I will that collected most of the pieces that I will show you today, which is Calouste Gulbenkian. He was an Armenian origin. He was from Armenian origin and became stupidly wealthy in the oil business. So he was called a Mr. 5% because on businesses that he had 5% of everything. So it's crazy. He became really wealthy, and he was an educated man. But he was, I mean, he could afford anything, and he said that for him only the best is good enough. So that was his way of collecting, and he collected a huge collection of art. And you can see here on his house in Paris that his collection, or part of his Lalique collection. But he was a very smart man because he visited Portugal, and then he decided to spend all his end years here. He came here to cure a disease. We have terrific weather, as most of you know. So he lived in central Lisbon in a hotel that doesn't exist anymore, Hotel Avis. He died there, and he offered all his collection and patrimony to a foundation that has a headquarters in Lisbon. And all his collection can be visited here in Lisbon at the Gulbenkian Museum. And here in this modern room, you can actually visit the Lalique collection. That is almost 90 pieces of jewelry and other artifacts and drawings that you can see. It's quite amazing. Oh, as you see the glass work that he was working on after 1910, 1912. So he became more famous actually as a glass. He spent more time in glass than in jewelry. Most of the jewels that I'm going to show you today come from museums that have good collections of Lalique. And I mentioned Gulbenkian, also the Albion Art Collection in Japan, absolutely stunning collection of jewelry, probably the best one in the world, has a nice selection of Lalique pieces. And also Musée des Arts Décoratifs in Paris also has a nice collection of Lalique artifacts, and the Lalique Museum in Hakone in Japan, but I couldn't find images. So that's why it's in gray. But all those four, you look it up on the internet and you can find resources on Lalique collections on those museums, and also catalogs published by them. So he was a master of crafts. He was a total genius, and he made a lot of innovation, not only in techniques, but also in materials. I'm not going to speak about enamel or glass, because he was a master of enameling. And you can see here the way that he does the plique à jour enamel, not animal. Animal, it's an animal. The way he works enamel, it's absolutely extraordinary, but I'm not going to address enamel at this point. He sketched his pieces beautifully, and he offered again a sculptural dimension to jewelry. When we go back in time, 17th century, 16th century, 17th century, early 19th century, we see pieces of jewelry like this. They look like sculptures. They look like they were sculpted. But then in the mid 18th century to the 19th century, all that sculptural dimension was lost because a lot of gems came into play, and the jewelry became skeletons to hold a lot of gems, mostly diamonds. And that sculptural dimension was lost. But Lalique and Art Nouveau, and also the arts and crafts movement before the Art Nouveau, they recovered the sculptural dimension of jewelry. And so you needed to be really gifted to be able to offer that sculpturing touch to jewelry. And he did it. He was also a master in knowing exactly that a piece of jewelry must be as good in the front as it is in the back. And look at this dog collar. Both sides are astonishing. This doesn't look only beautiful from the front, looks beautiful from the back. And this is outstanding. By the way, we will talk about this opal later on in the presentation. During his period, they contemporaries, and it's hard to choose all of them. I chose 4. We have Tiffany, particularly with Louis Comfort Tiffany. He was making those crazy lamps with glass. He was also, Louis Comfort was also a master of glass making. Of course, they were doing normal jewelry, like this brooch with a large red spinel. We have Carl Fabergé. He was also absolutely creative. I didn't put here his enameling work. Maybe you know Fabergé by the eggs that he published, that he manufactured for the Romanovs. But he was also a master of high-end jewelry, like you see here. And of course, the traditional Paris ones, Cartier, using platinum and using a lot of pearls and rubies, diamonds, and sapphires. And also Chaumet. I mean, I could go on and on with those contemporaries, but this is to give you an idea of the kind of jewelry that was mainstream on the late 19th century and early 20th century, and that he totally goes off that road. He doesn't, he designed for those brands. He did that kind of diamond bling bling jewelry. He knew how to do it. He did a couple, but his design, his idea was to go totally away from that path and create sculptures, art with the precious materials. That's what he did. So let's dive into his gemstones. And the first one is diamond. When he was producing jewelry, diamond was not as rare as it was in the 18th century, because from the 1966, 67, South Africa, the Kimberley area started to produce significant quantities of diamonds suitable for jewelry. And this chap over here, which is the Auriga diamond, was the very first one. Okay, so South Africa was a major producer. Diamonds were quite available, so it was easy to find diamonds in many sizes. But on his days, he didn't have that many available cuts. Now we have a lot of diamond cuts, but not at the time. There were rose cuts. They were popular. They were already made in the 15th century, but popular in the 16th century. But he used a lot of brilliant cuts. And now maybe you look at those cuts and you call old brilliant cuts. but the typical 18th century old mine cut, we can call them old mine. It's a newer expression. They were not called old mine in the 18th century, and only in the 17th when they were invented. They were called brilliants. That was their name, but now we call them old, but they were brilliants. In the 1870s, the mechanical bruting machine that enabled round shapes in diamonds was invented and developed. So in the last decades of the 19th century, diamonds became roundish. And for that kind of cut, we call them old European cut. And of course, in the 20th century, the modern brilliant cut became available. But Lalique mostly used rose cuts for the very small stones and the old European cut, which he called brilliant cuts, not old European. And this is the kind of diamond jewelry that he used to make before he became totally creative. This is a 1892 piece, so it's not the traditional Lalique period of making jewelry, but this is a diamond necklace. This is only diamonds. Not much his style after this. After that, he started to use diamonds not for their value, but for their optical properties. Brilliance, which is the light return from diamonds. Scintillation, which is when you move a diamond, you see flashes of light, which is an optical effect. And fire. Fire, it's a name that we use to describe that optical effect that we see on diamonds when the colors of the rainbow are reflected back to you. So you might have seen diamonds before, and when they are illuminated with proper lighting, you turn them around and you see colors of the rainbow, right? Flashes of colors of the rainbow. That is called fire. So fire, scintillation, and brilliance, visual characteristic of a polished diamond on the face-up position. He loved it for the optical effects, not for the value. He didn't use diamonds because they were very expensive. I mean, the other brands, they were using 10 carats, 20 carat diamonds. Wow, fantastic ones from South Africa on those days. But he didn't care. He used diamonds because they had sparkles, because they offered him what he wanted for the design. So he took advantage of the extraordinary optical properties of diamond, not of diamond as a sailing brand, if you know what I mean. This is another absolutely stunning example. This looks more like a diamond ring, but look how he creates a diamond ring. It's not only a diamond ring, it's much more than a diamond ring. And this is absolutely stunning. Another example where we see those little details that he has over there, he has over here, just to give sparkle. That's it. And he uses enamel, he uses glass. He doesn't care about the value of the materials. Do you think Van Gogh or Manet, they cared about the quality of the, I don't know how to say in English, the kind of thing where they paint over? They didn't care. Their value was on their hands, on the art. And Lalique, he understood that very well. Rose cuts, particularly in very small sizes, you can see them just on those pieces to give some sparkle, to give some surface reflections. And this is the astonishing thing about Lalique. He totally takes advantage of what gemstones have to offer, his idea of color and his idea of optical and statical impact. Emotional impact was quite strong and quite important for Lalique. And even today, sometimes we lack looking for that emotional impact when we look into jewelry. So, colored gemstones, he was more a colored man than a diamond man. And when we look at his creations, we see a lot of color. Much of the color on his creations, though, are not actually stones, are enamel, l'icajur, another color, very complicated to manufacture. But he also used a lot of colored gemstones, and we are going to speak about a few. Sapphire, especially blue sapphire. On those days, they were also available in Australia and elsewhere, but he The best ones came on those days from India. Kashmir was found, the famous Kashmir sapphires was found in 1888, so it was pretty much on that period. And also Sri Lanka, very old source, and Myanmar. But when we look at the sapphires that he used, we look at the colors, and he used quite nice colors. They were quite nice qualities, not very full of inclusions, not very dark. He must have liked sapphires very much. And here we see again, and even the cuts are typical from that period. So the cushion shapes and the ovals, sometimes with the squarish mixed cut type pavilions. So it's pretty much interesting. By the way, do you see diamonds here? Only to give sparkle, okay? Here, just to give a rim of sparkliness. Quartz. Let's move on to another gem material. Quartz is very abundant. We talked about it on the last webinar, and we have a lot of gem varieties. He didn't use all the gem varieties, but he used a lot of macrocrystalline varieties like amethyst and like rock crystal, and microcrystalline, or if you want cryptocrystalline, depending on the case, quartz, which is, you must recognize this. This is an agate, and agates are chalcedonies, and this is a absolutely stunning material that was first discovered in Australia. Is colored by nickel or by nickel-based particles, and it's called chrysoprase. And other sources, Brazil also produces nice material today, but on those days it was mostly from Australia, and he loved that. It's green, and we saw already blues in sapphire. Now we see greens in chrysoprase. But let's see a few examples. Here, a rather nice and very long and large amethyst. And by the way, you might ask me, what material is this one? On the leaves or on the flowers is glass. He uses glass like crazy. And also, this is an iconic diadem. I mean, this is to be wear here. I mean, people are with a rooster on the head. I mean, I couldn't, but people that can. So this is a diadem or a tiara, if we call it a tiara, but this is to be worn on your head. And it's made of gold, has enamel, and look at the size of that amethyst. That amethyst is absolutely out of the ordinary in terms of size. If you ever come to Lisbon, and please do so when the lockdown is over, and you visit the Gulbenkian Museum, when you get close to this rooster, to this cockerel diadem, that's the correct name of naming it, you will look, when you look it in the front face up, it's really dark, absolutely dark, because it's a very, as you can see here, look at, it's a very deep, the stone is very deep. So light goes into the stone and runs away from the back. It's called extinction. But when we look it from the side, this is the effect that you might see, very dark, but from the side is much lighter. This is called an extinction effect. If you go to Lotus Gemmology website, on the articles, you will see a fantastic explanation on extinction, brilliance, and windowing by Richard Hughes that I recommend dearly if you want to read. lotusgemmology.com. Go there. It's a very good learning platform, website, I mean. So you come to Lisbon, you look at this rooster, and the amethyst is very dark when you look from the front, but from the side, you just see color. By the way, you are looking at two pictures, two photographs, and here the tone or the hue of this amethyst is one, and here is the other. For those of you that take pictures of jewelry with amethyst, you know that it's really hard to get it right, to actually manage to have the right color of amethyst on with your camera. So you need to be knowledgeable on how to operate, and you need to know photography and light, but it's not easy. And also amethyst can change you, the color perception of amethyst changes with the kind of lightning that you use to illuminate it. So it's a challenging stone to photograph, as emeralds are. They are quite challenging, both of them. And citrines, we also see citrine. Citrine is the yellow quartz, and from a long time ago, we know that citrines can be obtained by heating amethyst. So from purple quartz, we heat it to a few hundreds of degrees and changes to yellow. Naturally colored citrine exists, but it's not abundant. I mean, you cannot find it in the same quantities as amethyst. And when Lalique was working, amethysts were abundant not only in Uruguay and Brazil, but they were abundant also in Russia. So the market of amethyst was considerable. And also chalcedony, and we see here white chalcedony, white agate. We wouldn't think that something like white agate or chalcedony could be like, wow, valuable, wow. But here, look at the context. You look at Wallace Chan or Jar or other artists, they manage to enhance the value of simple things, giving it a twist of art. And Lalique, he was brilliant. Who would ever think on making a drop on a jewelry piece using a little bit of quartz this is a quartz vein? And he did it. And now we look at it and we say, wow, beautiful. Go figure. And those are cabochons of chalcedony too. So it's absolutely outstanding. And this was a favorite. I mean, I love chrysoprase personally. It's that, like, do you know those apples? Its color is like those green apples that you come across here and there. And he was a master in carving those things into those beautiful women faces or feminine faces. And this is probably the most iconic art piece by Lalique at the Gulbenkian Museum, which is the dragonfly woman breastpin. And we see here, let me see if I can zoom it up for you. You can see here that the quality and the size of the chrysoprase. And also here we have little cabochons of chrysoprase. And she has a Princess Leia hairstyle, but those are enamel or not headphones also. Those are enamel, like we see here on the wings. And I mean, you could think that, wow, opal, yeah, it's glass, it's enamel. Those things, those chaps, I will tell you all about them in a minute. So this is the use of chrysoprase, of most probably from Australia, that he used in more than one piece. Also aquamarine, again, blue, green, greenish blue. See the consistency of the colors. And aquamarines were abundant, not as abundant as they are today. Brazil was a known source at the time, but we have no idea where he sourced them, most probably in Brazil. But in Asia, there were also occasional finds here and there. And this is a huge, look, this is this size. It's absolutely stunning. It's a huge piece of aquamarine in a cushion shape with a pavilion with a little square. So it's like a mixed cut. And this is glass. But when we look at this photograph, we find it, okay, it's normal. But when we look at the real thing, we see that the color, which is an absolutely stunning greenish blue, deep greenish blue color, is concentrated only at the rim. And why? Do you remember the amethyst that was too dark? Because it was very steep. The bottom part was really steep. The pavilion was steep. Here is the other way around. Here, the stone is very shallow. So shallow that light, when it comes in, it doesn't reflect back, crosses, and becomes transparent, becomes like a window. That's why we call it windowing. And this windowing shows us that brilliance, which is light return, is only around the rim. But on these photographs, you cannot tell it, can you? Nice photoshopping and nice post-production. But when you actually look at the stone, it's what it is. But this is a good example on how windowing works. And this is the color is absolutely out of the ordinary, but it's big. Sadly, it's shallow because it doesn't have that light return we would expect. But now you've learned about windowing and extinction. And some more examples. I'm not going to bore you with, I mean, those are not boring. Those are beautiful things, right? But he did not only use greenish blue aquamarines like those more bluish ones, though, because aquamarine, you can go from blue to greenish blue, almost to green, okay? So, speaking on green and speaking on emerald, he knew that emeralds could be really out of the normal, like those Colombian crystals, okay? Those were exhibited in New York a few months ago. But in my, as far as I know, in the Gulbenkian collection, there is only one. And look at the, sorry, I have here a pop-up, okay, not a pop-up. Look at the quality of the emerald. Yeah, it's full of inclusions, full of fissures. It's not transparent. I mean, he could afford nice emeralds. It wasn't the case, and they were available. But he didn't fancy those transparent ones. He wanted more translucent. I have no idea. I'm not an expert in interpreting his mind. What I can say is the emerald, the only emerald that it is in the Lalique collection at the Gulbenkian Museum, it's a translucent one. It's not the highest quality like those crystals, kaboom. Those are out of normal. This one, yeah, okay. It's okay, but it's big, but it's not like whoa. But again, he doesn't use the emerald because it has a big number behind it, but because it offers what he wants. He wants this shape, an oval shape, and he wants translucent green. There you go, emerald, easy choice. So, whoops, another one, tourmaline. Now we are used to see tourmaline in high-end jewelry, but not on those days. Actually, this one on your picture is from California, but we don't know on those days where his tourmalines came from. We know that in Mesa Grande in California, some really nice pink tourmalines were being exported to China through, I think, through Tiffany's. He was the one doing that kind of connection, because in China, they did love this kind of material. The imperial court loved the pink tourmalines, and we can see really nice tourmaline carvings in China from American material. I have no idea the origin, but what I can show you is an outstanding piece of jewelry with scarabs. So who has the idea of making a delicate jewelry piece with those animals? And there you go, you have here a really good pinkish red tourmaline with a large size. This piece is quite large. So we are almost in the end. Phenomenal stones, not because they are phenomenal, but because they have optical phenomena. That's why I call them phenomenal stones. I could say gem materials with special optical effects, but phenomenal is more romantic. Okay, let's talk about the first phenomena, chatoyancy, which is the cat's eye effect that you can see there on an outstanding chrysoberyl and a delightful photo by the late Tino Hamid. And it's a reflection effect, and it works when you have a round surface with certain structure. In this case, it can be inclusions like needle-like inclusions, or like hairs. I mean, hairs in my case, but when you have parallel, very small inclusions, tube-like inclusions, growth tubes, whatever, structures, tabular structures, then if you have a curve, you can have a reflection. And in each point of that curve, the illumination is reflected once. So if you have very fine structure, you will have a lot of reflections in one direction. And there you go, you have a cat's eye. By the way, if you have not one direction of those structures, but you have 1 and 2, you have a cross, you have a star. And if you have 3, you have a 6-ray star like we see in sapphires and rubies. But no, let's go into the chatoyancy, the cat's eye. Cat's eyes in chrysoberyls are the best ones, or the better defined, and in the high range of value, if you want. And sometimes they are mentioned in the trade as cymophane or cymophane. I don't know how to pronounce it in English, but the spelling is there, the pronunciation is not. And he didn't use like the very best chrysoberyls, but he used the grays, gray cat's eye chrysoberyl, like that pair that you see over there. But he was looking for the effect. He was looking for the chatoyancy. He was not looking for the exquisite honey kind of colored chrysoberyl in a more transparent or translucent. He was looking for this. He was sourcing visual characteristics, not value. The value was his art. Another optical effect, adularescence, which is actually its iridescence. And when it happens in adularia, which is a variety of feldspar, we call it adularescence, another very difficult to pronunciate. And this stone, this material there, we see here some glass, some sapphires, of course, some diamonds for sparkle, and a huge moonstone. But let us stop a little bit here. Moonstone, it's a collective name. It doesn't mean anything in particular. It does mean a series of materials, feldspars, when they have this kind of iridescent effect. And in adularia, you call it adularescence. If it is a peristrite, you call it peristrescence. So moonstone is a more complex concept than what we might think, but let's keep it simple. Let's call it moonstone, and let's say that this is an adularia feldspar, full stop. And the effects that you can see on adularia, on moonstone, they can be like this milky, wavy kind of reflection from the subsurface, like you see on this cabochon, or it can be the more famous bluish reflection or iridescence that has a name. We call it Schiller. And can you see those blue things on the wings? Can you see here? I think you can see it better here. And those, by the way, you saw a cabochon, and those are faceted. These ones are faceted, which is curious for moonstone. They are almost transparent. They have they are semi-transparent, and they have the bluish iridescence. Those, as you see, blue. And by the way, look at the glass. Everything is blue. He loved blue. Maybe he was from Chelsea. Chelsea football has blue outfit. Anyway, another favorite of Lalique, precious opal. And I'm not saying opal, I'm saying precious opal. Why? Because opals is another collective name, but only when opals have the play of color, that is this effect, that when we handle one opal and we turn it, we see the colors, they change when the light or ourselves or the stone changes. And that play of color, it was really captured all the artists from the 19th century, the late 19th century. Opals had been famous in today's Slovakia. It was an older Austro-Hungarian empire, and sometimes you see them in the literature as Hungarian opals. But Australian opals, which is the case here, that you see on your image, they became available in the late 19th century. And Lalique knew exactly to choose whatever he wished to give that changing of colors that Hungarian opals they had, but Australian opals had much more. And let's see a few examples. But before that, when he was doing jewelry, and then sometimes today people think, oh, opals, bad luck. That's I mean, I'm not superstitious, because being superstitious brings bad luck. But anyway, they would say, some people said that opals were bad luck. If we look in very old documents, medieval, even in mythological papers, opals that were known, or iris quartz, well, it doesn't matter. An opal with various colors had as many virtues as each and every color that it could show. But all of a sudden in the 19th century, oh, opals are bad luck. And this gentleman is to blame. Sir Walter Scott wrote this novel. It's a nice novel, 1829. And it was misread during the content that it was this aunt of the main lady of the story. She was like creepy, and she had an opal pin, and now all of a sudden people say, oh, opals are bad luck because of this nice gentleman. So he sold much more books after that, and less opals for the other chaps. But everything starts here, the bad luck of opals. Some people say that opals are bad luck because they can be brittle, but if you are an experienced jeweler, you would know exactly how to set it and how to defend from the eventual fragility that it has. And then of course, Lalique did things like this. You look at this dog collar. I mean, you can put it on a dog, but it's called dog collar. And it looks like a huge plaque of opal, right? But when we turn it, we see that he used many pieces of opal, possibly from White Cliffs. I have no idea, in Australia. Those are white opals. And he had to source opals thick enough to be able to be set on this dog collar, and also of the same color and the same kind of effect. So this was not easy to assemble. And I'm sure that probably he got the plaques first, and then he had to figure out how to put it on a forest. This is absolutely out of the ordinary. By the way, you see here some diamonds, rose cut diamonds, just for brilliance. Again, opals. You see, this is one of my favorite pieces of Lalique. It's very simple, diamonds for sparkle, and then you have outstanding opals. And by the way, the orange thing that you see here and there, do you see the orange? It's not play of color. It's light that's coming from behind when it was photographed. Because if you put those opals in transparency, they don't have play of color. They become orange, which is, and with no play of color. They need reflected light to be able to show that play of color. And some more examples here from the Albion Art collection. Absolutely stunning collection. I remember that I promised to show you this, this one again. And here, if you look at the opal, all right, you see that this part is darker and that part is lighter. Why? And there is no secret, because when we turn this around, we verify that in the back, there is something black. And this black thing actually is not black, it's dark brown, is a rock. It's called ironstone. And this material, which is precious opal, in the mother rock, in the substrate, it's called a boulder opal. And boulder opals are very popular in Queensland, Australia. And this is a typical example of boulder opal. And how come the matrix can substantially make it look much better? Okay, let me show you now. This is a typical boulder opal from Queensland. And you see here, the light is, the opal is here, and the matrix, which is the ironstone, the rock, is over there. And this is an example here used by Lalique in a much better quality. Biogenic, not organic. Biogenic gem material. I'm saying biogenic and not organic because in most of you that studied gemmology, you might have heard, and even I, that the gem materials that came from nature, the animal and plant nature, are called organics. And there are even fantastic books on organics, like Maggie Campbell's Organic Gem Materials, right? But a couple of years ago, I think it was in 2016, the World Jewellery Confederation decided, after discussion, that a few of those products, a few of those gem materials were not organic in composition. They were mineralized calcium carbonate. And we are speaking specifically of pearl, of madder of pearl, and precious corals, for example. And those, they are not organic, as a horn may be organic, as a tortoise shell may be organic, as wood, precious wood may be organic, but not shell, not pearl, not coral. So this is why I insist in saying biogenic, because biogenic makes everything on the same box, because it comes from living organisms. And so natural pearls. He was living on a period that natural pearls were very expensive. They were not very, I mean, they were around, but the good quality ones, like these huge ones here from the Alfardan collection, they were hard to source, and they could reach outrageous prices. And he might have used, and we know that jewelry artists on that period, they used both natural pearls from seawater, from marine pearl oysters, but they also used freshwater natural pearls from freshwater pearl mussels. So they used both. We must remember that cultured pearls, they became commercially available after 1916, although Mikimoto managed to produce his first cultural pearl in 1905 and patented his process in 1908, so pretty much on the same time. But the production, the international production of Mikimoto's Akoya cultured pearls happened a few years later. So during Lalique time, when he was doing jewelry, no cultured pearls were available on the market for him to source. So he was using natural pearls. And here we can see the typical kind of shapes that he loved much, the Baroque. Baroque meaning with no axis of symmetry. And if we look at here, you see that he continually, we see drops. He uses a lot of drops, and he recovers the models and the statics of the Renaissance of the 16th and 17th century, where you can see pearl drops or drops, doesn't matter. And we see a lot of drops in Lalique. And if you look at those jewels, those are sculptures, those have a sculptural dimension. And maybe he was going 300 years before and was inspired by this kind of volume, because he liked volumes. This is a really nice spear-shaped natural pearl that is in Japan in the Albion Art Collection. And this is an iconic piece that is on the Gulbenkian. Those pearls, when you visit them, the nacre is a little bit degraded, but I would love to know if they are freshwater or saltwater. And some more pieces of jewelry using pearls by Lalique, the normal seed-sized ones. And here, this is a button shape, and the ring, the design of the ring is out of normal. You can visit it in Paris when you can travel. And look at those two artifacts, and particularly this one. This one is freshwater natural pearl. And we know that on those days in America, all across America, particularly in Tennessee, Mississippi, even New Jersey and New York State, pearls were being fished in ponds and lakes. And there was even a pearl rush. And George Kunz, on his book of the pearl, he mentions that pearl rush in America. So we might find some American freshwater natural pearls in Art Nouveau artists, and maybe those two and some more that I've shown, they can be freshwater. I have no idea. As far as I know, they haven't been published. They might have been studied, but they haven't been published as such. So looking forward to it. Another controversial gem material that he used was ivory, but he also used imitations of ivory. He also used cellulose acetate, was a new material then, to imitate ivory. So a nice thing by him on those days. And this is not mentioning that you are sleeping during my talk. Look at the, by the way, look at how lucky he is. He can be in the outside. He has food all over. The reason I'm showing you this water buffalo, look at horns. The horns, he and the artists of that period, they understood how to take advantage of this bovine horn. And Lalique, he was a master on taking advantage of the thermal properties of horn, making it a great material to mold and to make those kind of things, particularly combs that I'm very fond about, as you might imagine. Here's some more examples. And the color and the texture that he managed was a proprietary technique that he had on how to work this material. He might have worked mostly the Vietnamese water buffalo, but some authors say that he also used cow horns, or well, I don't know the name of the husband of the cow. The cow is the female, and then there's the husband. I don't know. So the male cow, the cow male. So you have that one also, but I have no idea, and need more published research, interesting published research on that, I'm sure. So in conclusion, and we are at the end, and we took a bit more than I expected. So very real quick, he was a notable Art Nouveau artist, okay? And he chose his gems not by their value, but by their visual characteristics. The diamonds in particular, we don't see huge diamonds on his signed creations. We see them for sparkle, for brilliance and scintillation. And we see a lot of blues and greens, not only in gemstones, but also in the glass and enamel that he used. And he liked phenomenal stones with optical properties, like opal, like moonstone, like cat's eye. He did like those very much. And pearls, natural pearls, and horn, he was a master of horn. And ivory, he was a master also in sculpturing ivory, but he used also imitations of ivory on those days. So this was our lecture for today. Thank you very much. And I was not very easy to source that kind of letterhead to say the thank you. And put on your agenda, I will send you the link right away, that on Tuesday we will be talking about natural pearls in history, and then I will give a very short introduction on the historical use of pearls, and then we have a very special guest, Adi Alfardan. He will share with us the challenges of being a pearl collector in the 21st century, with all the sustainability issues, with the rarity, with the he will explain, and I think it's a privilege to see that. If you want to Google him, Google Adi Alfardan and New York Times. He gave a really nice interview, I think 2 years ago. So much of what he is going to say on Tuesday, it's published, was published on that New York Times interview. So see you Tuesday, but not before I stop sharing my screen. Hello again. And I'm going now to launch the poll or quiz. If you want to take it, feel free to do so while I try to see the key. Oh my God, so many. I will choose the easy questions, make no mistake. Okay, somebody is asking if I could repeat the previous talks. I might, because this is going to be a very long lockdown. And to be honest, those presentations are presentations that I did before. This one I gave in Washington for the GIA alumni 10 years ago, and also in the GMA's General Assembly in 2008 or 9. I can't remember. So it's not new. And I might run out of lectures. I might not, because I have quite a few. But I started with only 80 viewers, and today we were 491, nearly 500. We didn't, nobody was out. So a lot of new people are coming, and I might repeat the first ones. Yesterday at the Asian Institute of Gemmological Sciences, I repeated the emerald one with small differences, and I might repeat the coral one in a couple of weeks. It's going to be a very long lockdown for everybody, so I will be here until this is over. More questions while you're doing the seminar? Ronnie Bauer is asking if the panel is made of emerald. No, the panel is made of chrysoprase, if my memory doesn't fail me. It's a really nice plate. It's really huge. Okay, more on moonstones shortly. I can prepare. I mean, I will, to be honest, I'm trying not to prepare much because I have to do my work as well. I have to make a living. So I'm trying to not allocate to these webinars so much time. So I'm using past presentations. I haven't made any on Moonstone. So I might not be able to deliver one on Moonstone, to be honest. Sorry. Okay. Oh, Maria, she is asking me who gave him inspiration, other artists. That's a very good question, but I'm not a Lalique specialist. So I don't even have an educated opinion on that. I've read a lot about Lalique, but I'm not the best person to give you a good answer. So if it is about gemstones, go ahead. If it is not gemstones. Or football, I also understand football. Is amber biogenic? Very good question. Amber is a fossil. So amber is, technically amber is resin that became fossilized, that suffered the geological process, so it became a fossil. And the origin is biogenic, but the process is also geological. So when we go into definitions, we can spend here a whole afternoon discussing what is more relevant, if it is the origin, the biogenic origin, or the geological process that came after to fossilize it. So, but it's a good discussion. But copal, which is resin that is not fossil, that's absolutely biogenic with no question, because it's not a fossil at all. And New Zealand has really good copal in there from the kauri tree. More questions, easy questions, please. Details about difference between organic and biogenic geometry. The difference in the definitions, they are not much difference. I mean, biogenic is a collective name for everything. Organics are also for everything except coral, pearl, and shell. In other words, except materials that the main composition is a mineralized component like calcium carbonate. No organic matter. The other gem materials like amber or copal, if you wish, tortoise shell, horn, they are organics. They are organic molecules. Some are, a tortoise shell is a natural plastic, for instance. It's not a mineral. So more questions. The imitation ivory that Lalique used, if my memory doesn't fail me, was cellulose acetate. Google it. It's a quite, I think it's not being done anymore. And he also used on experiment that material with color. So he used without color, in white, and also in red and other colors. Do you know the hazelnuts are made in the horncomb? No, I don't have it in my memory. Sorry about that, Lindy. An anonymous attendee is asking what's the name of the designer we're discussing again. Lalique, René Lalique. It's the title of the presentation. Sorry. It's like going to a concert, to a rock concert, and saying, "Oh, who's playing? Who's playing today?" It happens. So, okay, more. I have time for one more question. I will try not. Okay, that one I gave. If I know, Stefan, if I know where Lalique sourced his gemstones, he lived in Paris. He went, I think he had the Place Vendôme store, I think it's 2010. It's not an early source, not an early shop, but he was connected with all the Place Vendôme people, and he sourced the stone as the others, the diamonds in diamond dealers, pearls. Paris was the European capital of natural pearls at the time, so it was easy to source pearls in Paris, and the other materials as well. But the funny ones like horn, ivory, I think he sourced from Belgium. I'm not sure about that, and the others I have no idea. But there were stone dealers. But the funny stuff was funny stuff. Horn was really funny stuff. Okay, one more, and this is I really have to go. What are the gems on the eyes of the cock diadem? Oh, the rooster one. Let me check. I don't think there are gemstones in there. Let us see together. I'm going to share the screen. How do I? I think it's an enamel. I don't know. It's hard to share the screen now. Nah, I'm not tech savvy. This is challenging for me. Now I think it is also enamel, not any stone. So I'm going to end the poll and share with you the results. Then we can we will sort it out, the answers, the right ones and the wrong ones, and we will discuss them. So the first one, Lalique became famous for what artistic movements? Art Nouveau, of course. Arts and crafts was a 1850s thing in the UK. And he pretty much might have been inspired by those guys. Those guys were really creative. And he studied 2 years in the UK. So he had contact with people that were working the materials jewelry materials in a totally different way. He used diamonds for their not value. He didn't care much about the value. He did care about visual characteristics. He wanted to take advantage of diamond, not diamond taking advantage of his brand. So he was smart on that. Lalique was known for using cultural pearls. No, cultural pearls became available commercially much later. He stopped doing jewelry in 2010, 11, 12, started then the glass producing career, and cultural pearls became commercially, I underscore, commercially available in the 1916, if you wish, 1920. The famous court case in Paris is 1926 or 28. So that's when he became, when cultural pearls became like, ooh, a problem, like synthetic diamonds. Some people think they are a problem now. It's history repeats itself, court cases and everything. He only used, as far as I know, natural pearls. But cultural pearls have been available. The first one was reported in 1905 from the Ecoya oyster, but very small, okay? Not big, it was a very small pearl. But he used natural pearls most. So, of course, it was false. Number 4, green quartz variety has, I'm not reading this right. The green quartz variety he used considerably was aventurine. Aventurine, if you want to say aventurine quartz, is not a variety of quartz, it's a rock, quartzite rock with the green mica inside. So it's not aventurine. Chrysoberyl sounds like it, okay? Sounds like chrysoberyl, but it's chrysoprase. They have the same, this very similar Greek origins. The old guys, if they wanted to name a material, they use Greek words. Chryso stands for gold, praise stands for green, so chrysoprase is greenish gold. And chrysoberyl is transparent, golden transparent, or golden transparency, something like that. So chrysoberyl is similar, but chrysoberyl has nothing to do with chrysoprase except the few letters in their name. So it was the last one was the correct one. For last, he believed, oh, very good English. He believed opals were bad luck. He believed opals were bad luck. False. He didn't care about that. He was not superstitious. So maybe he was, but he didn't care. He looked at opals like an extraordinary color, not color changing, but had plays of colors. He could play with the colors like moving, and it was pretty much on the spirit of the time, have things that change. So it was quite nice of him, and he used opals extensively. Not only him on that period, but he particularly, he used opals, precious opals with play of color very much. So this is done. Let me see if I have one more question. I'm going to choose the easiest one. Okay, what is my football team? That is a very easy, Sporting Lisbon. We don't win nothing, but it's a real support. Okay. Yes, coral is formally, according to CIBJO, is not an organic gem. It's a biogenic gem material. Organics is a very old term. It was changed not many years ago. But I mean, if you'd say it's an organic gem, it's okay. But it's not scientifically correct. But it's okay. No, there is not forbidden to say. Okay, a lecture on Fabergé. I'm not a jewelry expert. I'm not a jewelry historian. I know about stones. That's what I know a little bit. So I know a few Fabergé creations, but I would hardly be proficient in delivering to you something on Fabergé. There are people way more qualified to do that than myself. Okay. When this recording will be available, I'm actually recording, but I haven't been able to check any recording from the previous webinars because I'm full of work. I don't have time to do nothing. So in the end, I will revisit the recordings and see what I can do with them. So that's it. So I really have to go. Thank you very much. Oh, I forgot to post the links for the next one. Let me put there on the chat room. I think you will receive an email with all those things, right? Hopefully, if I'm Wendy, I don't think I'm getting this. Okay, sorry, I'm not very proficient with machines. I think it comes with the age. Okay, you have the links for the next session, links for the downloads or for visiting websites with information on Lalique, particularly that article that I wrote. I wrote that a few years ago, so it's might be a bit outdated, which is normal for writers. I live well with that. And also, if you want to follow me on social media, on Instagram, LinkedIn, or if you wish on Facebook, you have the links over there. So meanwhile, don't forget Tuesday, we have another one on natural pearls. I think it will be amazing because it's not a comparison, but we will see the old days and the modern times with natural pearls, and that's going to be absolutely fabulous. And Adi, he's absolutely engaging. So thank you very much for being there. Be safe and be with us whenever you wish. And thank you for all your support. Sorry if I might not respond to every message, very kind message that you have been sending to me via social media, etc. Otherwise, I will keep, instead of working, I will be all day doing this, which I feel it's polite to do, to reply to each and every one of you, but you are too many already, and I might not be able to respond to every one of you. So sorry if I don't reply to your inquiries on messages or whatever. I'm really sorry about that. It's basically impossible. I have to take care of my 3 animals that are my kids, and also work. And entertaining you is a real pleasure. And the time I'm offering to this, I find it really positive. I honestly, I have a lot of fun doing this. I love doing this. I don't like speaking to a dot, which is a camera, but I prefer having a live audience. But this is nice, okay? Because I see your messages, and my heart is totally full. So thank you very much. I'm going to close the video feed. I will not close the webinar, so you can keep chatting with each other if you wish. And sorry if I didn't reply to all your Q&As, but I really have to go. And see you Tuesday. Have a lovely weekend, and stay safe and stay at home. Bye-bye.